A very good evening to you. We are joining you once again from Stein Studios during the time allocated for the English Prime Time Bulletin. In the afternoon, we had a panel ready for you to analyze what was going on in terms of the result. We now again have a panel. Let me very quickly introduce the panel to you. On the far right, we have Mr. Farah Shaukat Ali, and then next we have Mr. Nadim Majid. We have Azra Hassan on my left, and of course Shamir Rasuluddin also on my far left. Shamir, let's start with you. Right. You made a prediction during the afternoon. What is the situation now? Have you changed the numbers?
Chaturang, it's not about changing numbers, or it's not about saying, okay, who is going to win this election. The ultimate goal is to analyze and see what exactly happened at this election. When you look at the numbers, you can very evidently see that this is a protest vote against the UNP. You know, the UNP, which has been able to secure a formidable position, at least as an opposition in the previous elections, are now out of the window completely. Sure. Take a look at the numbers. 60.92% of the votes cast, eligible votes cast, has gone to the SLPP, Sri Lanka Pojana Peramuna. And then the SJB, the Samanga Jana Balavega, is securing approximately around 27% of the votes, and the ITAC at 2.72%. And then you have the NPP, the National People's Power, taking approximately around another 4.02%. And where is the UNP in this equation? That's the question mark. You saw the UNP coming as a very good force at the last elections. We saw this happening in 2015, where they were able to secure over 90 seats in parliament. However, what happened to them now? It's very evident that people do not want Ranil Wickremesinghe as a UNP leadership anymore. They have said this is not the way that they want the party to be governed. This is not the way that they want the party to move forward. And they have decided as a party, as supporters of Sri Lanka, guess what? We will not vote for you, we will not vote for your party as long as you retain the leadership of the UNP. And that is where the SJB has scored somewhat. That is where the NPP has come as a third force in this election. And that is where ITAC has come as a fourth force of this election so far.
For us to take off from where we are right now, has the SJB actually taken off the UNP votes, or have they not voted at all, the people who voted for the UNP? Because the SLPP portion seems to remain the same.
I'm minded to analyze that the people have not voted. The people who are mainstream United National Party are obviously fed up, as what Shamir said earlier, that you know, they are fed up of the leadership of this Ranil Wickremesinghe. It's become beyond a joke. We understood when he was muddle-headed, but at the end of the day, there's a protest vote, and that's reflected by the fact that only around 70% of the power.
For us, you were very clear in the afternoon. You said 121 to the. You were very precise on the number. Yeah. Now, what is your stand?
I believe now, judging by the lackadaisical performance of the United National Party and SJB results yet to come, really, I think that we'll see a situation where the SLPP will have approximately closer to 140 votes than 121, as I said earlier in the day.
140.
You know, just to add to what Faraz was saying earlier in the day, I said that it is, I said impossible at first, but then I corrected that and said improbable. And I'm actually thankful that I said improbable, because I think that, as Faraz says, it's 140. If you look at the current voting patterns and the margins by which the SLPP is winning, because I get that there is a protest vote against the UNP and for the UNP rebels, let's call them, in the SJB. UNP is being cleaned out in several polling divisions, coming second to the NPP, the Jatika Jana Balavega as well. I think that there is a possibility now, not even a remote possibility, I think it is a clear possibility now that the SLPP may actually claim the 150 seats required for the two-thirds majority. And that is a very, it's quite an astounding place to be, because you have to seriously consider what the ramifications
I don't think,
of such a majority are.
I don't agree with that fact, because if the SLPP is to gain 150 plus seats in parliament, the voter percentage should be over 90%.
Yeah.
So are you trying to say that 90% of the votes cast are going to go to the SLPP? That's
No,
a
you need about
far-fetched
66%.
dream. I don't think. No, it's 90%.
66% is two-thirds of the
No,
vote.
no. If
You
if
need
look at-
proportionally two-thirds, so it's a proportional representation system.
Yeah.
If you have 67% of the vote, you're getting two-thirds of the seats.
Gentlemen, let's
I don't agree.
we'll come back to that, Sham and Nadeem.
Nadeem's,
We are looking at, we've saved the best for the last. Azra, we have 82 out of the 160 polling divisions coming out. The results are out. 2 districts are announced from the 22 electoral districts. Now, we have somewhat of a clear picture right now. I want to focus the attention on Colombo. The role of female representation. I'm not asking this because you're a woman, but the female representation was seen in the Samagi Jana Balawege party. 5 seats is what everyone is talking about, 5 to 6. Do you think there will be a female representation coming in from the Samagi Jana Balawege?
Yes, Chaturanga, because we saw how certain female representatives were very vocal about the current government and how they were opposing the current government. And they were also, there were some from the previous government now joining the Samagi Jana Balawege. So I see that it is better than what it was before, because they have been given the freedom and the room that they need.
There is a more higher chance.
High chance for them to come out and speak about things and voice their issues and objections without any fear. So I think this could be a reason why people are moving towards the SJB when we compare with the United National Party.
Azra, let me, with that, for us, coming back to you, as I said to Azra as well, 2 districts, the results are out. Matara was a very key district because people were thinking of Sunil Handunetti coming into the parliament. Everyone was going on and on about it on social media. However, the final result does not reflect that. Handunetti is not in as far as we know at the moment, and the Samagi Jana Balawege, who were expecting at least 2 seats, have reduced to 1 seat. So, what is that analysis? People wanted that. We were talking about the corruption, politics.
Well, it's one of the saddest moments of this election definitely will be if Mr. Handunetti doesn't end up in Parliament. Mr. Handunetti's contribution to an anti-corruption stance is commendable, and his performance in 2 lots of core committees and so on, we must not forget that. And so I hope that for his sake that the NPP will have enough votes so that he can go on perhaps enter Parliament on a national list, although he was very clear during the campaign that he would not do so, that if he lost the election, then he would remain retired.
Shamir, I want to come back to Colombo. Ranil Wickremesinghe, the former opposition leader, former Prime Minister, leader of the United National Party, not even 2%, just barely above 2% at the moment in terms of what we know, in terms of the results that we know. Residual seat, the bonus seat that the winning party may receive. Do you think there's a chance?
See, Chaturanga, you said the leader of the UNP. Let's not forget the fact that he was a UNP leader for 26 years. He held the post of Prime Minister 5 times, and all 5 times he held the post of Prime Minister, he has failed. And if you are to get that bonus seat, you have to at least gain 5.4% of the eligible votes cast, because if you take a look at it, there are 21 members who are contesting for a seat in Colombo. And what you have to do is you have to divide that by 100.
Yeah.
And then the figure that you come into play is 5.4. So if you have to at least gain 5.4% of the votes cast. And the UNP is in a position that they are not even able to gain that amount of seats in the Colombo district. I think I agree with Faraz partly when he said about Sunil Handunetti. It's very unfortunate because an individual who has played a pivotal role in the COPE committee meetings, who has played a role in corruption, anti-corruption stance in Parliament, is out of Parliament now. Is that what the people want? And then I want to get into what Nadeem said, 150 seats, a 2/3 majority to the SLPP. What a joke is that at the end of the day? You saw in the 18th
But Sham, you can't say that. That's what the people had voted for.
See, Chaturanga, this is where the people don't realize. 71% of the eligible votes have been cast.
Yeah.
Every single time there has been, the numbers have come down. Let's say 2010 presidential election, general election. You saw 144 seats going to the UPFA at that time. So this time around, it's no surprise. But just imagine what sort of a dilemma would it create? You are going to push the people to the ledge at the end of the day.
But Shami, that was the exact argument in the former government. You said that the former government couldn't function because it was a national government. Maithripala Sirisena, the former president, was pulling it in one direction, and former Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe was pulling it in another direction.
Wasn't
so why
that the
not?
case? Wasn't that
it was the case, but
Chaturanga?
it was the case. But why is it wrong this time to give them the majority?
Why must you give the majority? The very moment that you give a majority to the SLPP or the UPF at that time, you've seen amendments like the 18th Amendment to the Constitution coming into play. Just imagine what sort of a debacle that took place, that happened. 2015, there was an election. People did not want Mahinda Rajapaksa to be running the country. They protested against him, and that is why Maithripala Sirisena came into play. What Maithripala Sirisena did during his tenure in office is a different question altogether. But look at the problems it created. Chaturanga, you are very well aware. I don't need to tell you this. When the 18th Amendment to the Constitution came into play, they bought in votes in Parliament, and that is the exact sentiment that Mahinda Rajapaksa expressed a few days ago. We know exactly how to get that votes in. What does that mean? Does that mean that you're going to buy the people? Does that mean that you're going to buy the party representatives to your side? No, that is not the way how a democracy should function in the country. Just imagine those very people who voted in favor of the 18th Amendment to the Constitution went ahead and placed their signature on the 19th Amendment to the Constitution.
Right.
Once the 19th Amendment to the Constitution came into play, now they are saying the 19th Amendment to the Constitution is not the way to go about. What a joke! Is this what we want? And now they are saying that we want a new Constitution. Henceforth, give us a 2/3 majority to bring in a new Constitution. Is this what the people want?
Azra, when we are talking about the constitution matter, now the 2/3 majority was needed because they are trying to go back on the 13th as well. There's talk of the 13th Amendment to the Constitution. Now, Mahinda Rajapaksa, the current Prime Minister of our country, is empowered with the 19th Amendment because the executive powers of the President was reduced. So, in a situation like that, in a situation where President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, who are brothers, are going forward like this, do you think the Prime Minister, if you were in his shoes, would you want the 19th to go back and, the President to receive the powers, thereby reducing the powers of the Prime Minister once again?
No, if I think from his perspective, he would not want to go back to that position. But there's also a reason why people did not want the government that was created by Maithripala Sirisena and Ranil Wickremesinghe to continue, because they came in promising so many things. They mentioned so many things about what the Rajapaksa regime did back then, and they came into power. And end of the day, seemed to be that everyone keeps disappointing everyone.
Okay.
So there's a reason why people don't understand, Chaturanga.
Shamir certainly seems disappointed at the moment.
See, I'm disappointed I'm not disappointed for myself, Chaturanga. I'm disappointed for the people of this country. The people who did not go out there and vote. Now, take me for an example. I did not go to vote this time around. Why? Because I was an undecided voter. I did not like the national list. I did not like the nomination list of political parties, and henceforth, I didn't have anyone to vote for.
Right.
And I was an undecided voter. And the political parties in Sri Lanka failed to get my vote to be casted on that particular day, 5th of August. They failed. And why have they failed? Because they were lying to us repeatedly. And I agree with Azra when Azra says what happened during the Maithripala Sirisena and Ranil Wickremesinghe regime. We don't want that either. A coalition government has never worked in Sri Lanka, and we've seen that in 2002 to 2004 as well.
What is the option? You're saying don't give a national government?
There is no option, Chaturanga. End of the day, what we have to think about is the people of this country.
Okay.
People don't understand the complicated statistics that we are talking about here. They don't understand. All what they want is a way that they can earn and survive, so they can move forward in life, Chaturanga.
But
I don't agree with. I don't agree with others that.
Do you not think that the people should be the priority?
No. Priority for the people. See, that is an old thinking. I think we saw this happening in countries like Afghanistan at one point, where people thought, okay, no bomb blast, and let's vote in Hamid Karzai as the Prime Minister of the country. What happened after that? Subsequently, Barack Obama came into play, and forces were only withdrawn from Afghanistan when Barack Obama's time came into office, the latter stages. This is not what the people require. If you start thinking, Azra, with the mentality, put something to our table and we'll give them the vote, that is not the way that the people should think. That era has completely been diminished. I'm not for that. I don't think at any cost, the cost of living should be a priority for government. I don't think at any cost putting something to the people's table is, or getting a magic wand and saying, guess what, we have so many things coming out of our hat. and henceforth we'll give as all this as subsidy. I don't believe in all that. I think we are progressive people now. We have to start thinking about the economic growth of the country, policy direction of the country, national policies of the country. These are the way that we have to move forward, isn't it, Faraz?
Nadeem, before we go to Faraz, Nadeem, I want to ask you this question. If the problem in the previous government was the problem the national government, or was it the 19th Amendment? Because we see the same thing happening here through the 19th Amendment to the Constitution, where President Gotabaya Rajapaksa is the one receiving 6.9 million votes in the presidential election, and the Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, we are yet to see how much he has received. But that same structure we saw in the past government as well, where President Maithripala Sirisena, the former president, was elected, and he appointed Ranil Wickremesinghe as the Prime Minister.
Except
was
that
the issue the 19th, or was the issue the fact that it was a national government?
The issue was the fact that it was two different, there were icons of two different leaders of two different political parties. Here it is, you're talking about one party. And I said before that we need to consider the ramifications of what a two-thirds majority would bring, and Shamir actually expressed those ramifications quite articulately. You need to be, the people really need to think about what it's going to mean if the 19th Amendment is removed. Because whilst the SLPP has asked for a two-thirds majority from the people, and while it is possible that the people might give that to them, the people really need to think about the consequences of the 19th Amendment being repealed. Things like right to information and all of the good work that has been done through things like the right to information.
I'd rather wish that you'd ask me this question, because it's not the 19th Amendment, it was not the coalition, it was only one thing. After years in opposition, the government of the day was focused only on one thing. It was focused on corruption. They themselves were corrupt. And I don't have to mention the four-letter word, but I have to. It started off with the bond. It ended up with highways. It ended up with Sri Lankan Airlines. And it went all sorts of directions. They went back on their words. They promised to have justice. They promised accountability, and we the people did not get accountability. We had God knows what happened to the laws, but you know, it was this committee, that committee. We had the Prime Minister of this country defending a rogue governor of the central bank, and to this day the people are suffering, and the people who receive those funds, lo and behold, they're enjoying their lives.
No, but for us again, the central bank bond controversy was one of the reasons that the last time Sajid Premadasa even lost the presidential election, and that is a case in point. However, just take a look at the last 8 months, what this government has done. During the COVID-19 period, they went ahead signing, giving an extension to build the central highway. Take a look at what happened with the coal power plant. Emergency coal power plant, and people have forgotten now. This is where the Sajid Premadasa camp and even Ranil Wickremesinghe's camp and even the NPP camp have failed to capitalize. You have to capitalize in politics.
But the former opposition was able to do that, Shami, don't you think? That is why the bond scam came out, and the opposition was very strong and vocal about it.
I think, Chaturang, you are getting it wrong. I don't think any opposition party was talking about the bond scam. We were the only organization, I think Faraz would bear testament to, and even you for an example. We were the only organization to speak about the bond scam at a stretch for 1.5 years, and then we continue with saying the ramifications of the central bank bond controversy year on year, and every single day. We were the only network to allocate time to speak about the central bank bond controversy, and that is a result of the government's even changing hands. And unfortunately, April 21st attacks took place, where when the government, when Sajid Premadasa was fielded as their presidential candidate, they were gaining some momentum. But unfortunately, April 21st attacks took place after that.
We'll have to cross over to an election result as well. But until they cut to the main desk, I want to ask Asra this question. I don't know whether you'll have time, but we saw how the central bank bonds affected the general public, and we saw.
කෑගල්ල දිස්ත්‍රික්කයේ තැපෑ ඡන්ද ප්‍රතිඵලය ලැබී තිබෙනවා. ශ්‍රී ලංකා පොදු ඡන්ද පෙරමුණ ලබාගෙන ඇති ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 22904යි. සමකී ජන බලවේගය ඡන්ද 5394යි. ජාතික ජන බලවේගය ඡන්ද 1644යි. එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂය ඡන්ද 983යි.
கேகாலை மாவட்டம் தபால் மூல தேர்தல் முடிவு. ஸ்ரீலங்கா பொதுஜன பெரமுன பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 22,904, ஐக்கிய மக்கள் சக்தி 5,394, தேசிய மக்கள் சக்தி பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 1,644, ஐக்கிய தேசிய கட்சி பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 983.
උතුරු කොළඹ ඡන්ද ප්‍රතිඵලයේ සමගි ජන බලවේගය ලබාගත් ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 41,059යි. ශ්‍රී ලංකා පොදු ජන පෙරමුණ ලබාගත් ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 16,775යි. එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂය ලබාගත් ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 2,676යි. ජාතික ජන බලවේගය ලබාගත් ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 1,230යි.
கொழும்பு வடக்கு தேர்தல் தொகுதிக்கான தேர்தல் முடிவு. ஐக்கிய மக்கள் சக்தி பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 41,059, ஸ்ரீலங்கா பொதுஜன பெரமுன பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 16,775, ஐக்கிய தேசிய கட்சி பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 2,676, தேசிய மக்கள் சக்தி பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 1,230.
මැද කොළඹ ඡන්ද ප්‍රතිඵලය ලැබී තිබෙනවා. සමගි ජන බලවේගයේ ඡන්ද 64,692යි. ශ්‍රී ලංකා පොදු ජන පෙරමුණ ඡන්ද 16,688යි. එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයේ ඡන්ද 2,978යි. ජාතික ජන බලවේගයේ ඡන්ද 1,912යි.
கொழும்பு மத்திக்கான தேர்தல் முடிவுகள் கிடைத்திருக்கிறது. ஐக்கிய மக்கள் சக்தி பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 64,692, ஸ்ரீலங்கா பொதுஜன பெரமுன பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 16,688, ஐக்கிய தேசிய கட்சி பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 2,978, தேசிய மக்கள் கட்சி பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 1,912.
කෝට්ටේ ඡන්ද කොට්ටාසේ ඡන්ද ප්‍රතිඵලයයි මේ. ශ්‍රී ලංකා පොදු ජන පෙරමුණ ලබාගත් ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 29,436යි. සමගි ජන බලවේගය ලබාගත් ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 14,946යි. ජාතික ජන බලවේගය ලබාගත් ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 3,405යි. එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂය ලබාගත් ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 1,563යි.
கோட்டை தேர்தல் தொகுதிக்கான தேர்தல் முடிவு. ஸ்ரீலங்கா பொதுஜன பெரமுன பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 29,436, ஐக்கிய மக்கள் சக்தி பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 14,946, தேசிய மக்கள் சக்தி பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 3,405, ஐக்கிய தேசிய கட்சி 1,563 வாக்குகளை பெற்றிருக்கின்றது.
අවිස්සාවේල්ල ඡන්ද බල ප්‍රදේශයේ ඡන්ද ප්‍රතිඵලය ශ්‍රී ලංකා පොදු ජන පෙරමුණ ඡන්ද 58,477යි. සමගි ජන බලවේගයේ ඡන්ද 20,308යි. ජාතික ජන බලවේගයේ ඡන්ද 3,761යි. එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂය ලබාගත් ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 1,712යි.
அவிசாவளை தேர்தல் தொகுதிக்கான தேர்தல் முடிவு. ஸ்ரீலங்கா பொதுஜன பெரமுன பெற்ற வாக்குகள் 58,477, ஐக்கிய மக்கள் சக்தி பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 20,308, தேசிய மக்கள் சக்தி பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 3,761, ஐக்கிய தேசிய கட்சி பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 1,712.
හොරණ ඡන්ද බල ප්‍රදේශයේ ඡන්ද ප්‍රතිඵලය ශ්‍රී ලංකා පොදු ජන පෙරමුණ ලබාගත් ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 66,361යි. සමගි ජන බලවේගය ලබාගත් ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 17,510යි. ජාතික ජන බලවේගය ලබාගත් ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 4,267යි. එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂය ලබාගත් ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 1,573යි.
ஹொரணை தேர்தல் தொகுதிக்கான தேர்தல் முடிவு. ஸ்ரீலங்கா பொதுஜன பெரமுன பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 66,361, ஐக்கிய மக்கள் சக்தி பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 17,510, தேசிய மக்கள் சக்தி பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 4,267, ஐக்கிய தேசிய கட்சி 1,573 வாக்குகளை பெற்றிருக்கின்றது.
මානිපායි ඡන්ද බල ප්‍රදේශයේ ඡන්ද ප්‍රතිඵලය ඉලංගේ තමිල් අර්සු කච්චි පක්ෂය ඡන්ද 10,302යි. අකිල ඉලංගේ තමිල් කොංග්‍රසය ඡන්ද 6,999යි. ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පක්ෂය ඡන්ද 6,678යි. ඊලාම් ජනතා ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදී පක්ෂය ඡන්ද 3,740යි.
மானிப்பாய் தேர்தல் தொகுதிக்கான தேர்தல் முடிவு. இலங்கை தமிழரசு கட்சி பெற்ற வாக்குகள் 10,302, அகில இலங்கை தமிழ் காங்கிரஸ் பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 6,999, ஸ்ரீலங்கா சுதந்திர கட்சி பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 6,678, ஈழ மக்கள் ஜனநாயக கட்சி பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 3,740.
මන්නාරම ඡන්ද බල කොට්ටාසය ඉලංගේ තමිල් අරසු පක්ෂය ලබාගත් ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 20,266යි. සමගි ජන බලවේගය ලබාගත් ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 14,632යි. ශ්‍රී ලංකා පොදු ජන පෙරමුණ ලබාගත් ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 12,050යි. ස්වාධීන කණ්ඩායම් 1 2,565යි.
மன்னார் தேர்தல் தொகுதிக்கான தேர்தல் முடிவு. இலங்கை தமிழரசு கட்சி பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 20,266, ஐக்கிய மக்கள் சக்தி பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 14,632, ஸ்ரீலங்கா பொதுஜன பெரமுன பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 12,050, சுயேட்சை குழு 1 பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 2,565.
දැඩිගම ඡන්දබල ප්‍රදේශයේ ඡන්ද ප්‍රතිඵලය ශ්‍රී ලංකා පොදු ජන පෙරමුණ ඡන්ද 42276යි සමගි ජන බලවේගයේ ඡන්ද 16023යි ජාතික ජන බලවේගයේ ඡන්ද 1963යි එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂය ඡන්ද 1403යි.
දැடிகம தேர்தல் தொகுதிக்கான தேர்தல் முடிவு ஸ்ரீலங்கா பொதுஜன பெரமுன பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 42276, ஐக்கிய மக்கள் சக்தி பெற்ற வாக்குகள் 16023, தேசிய மக்கள் சக்தி பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 1963, ஐக்கிய தேசிய கட்சி பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 1403.
මීගමුව ඡන්ද බල කොට්ටාසේ ශ්‍රී ලංකා පොදු ජන පෙරමුණ ලබාගත් ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 36536යි සමගි ජන බලවේගය ලබාගත් ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 25023යි ජාතික ජන බලවේගය ලබාගත් ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 3834යි එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂය ලබාගත් ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 2784යි.
நீர்கொழும்பு தேர்தல் தொகுதிக்கான தேர்தல் முடிவு ஸ்ரீலங்கா பொதுஜன பெரமுன பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 36536, ஐக்கிய மக்கள் சக்தி பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 25023, தேசிய மக்கள் சக்தி பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 3834, ஐக்கிய தேசிய கட்சி பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 2784.
බොරැල්ල ඡන්දබල ප්‍රදේශයේ ප්‍රතිඵලය සමගි ජන බලවේගයේ ඡන්ද 20450යි ශ්‍රී ලංකා පොදු ජන පෙරමුණ ඡන්ද 17680යි ජාතික ජන බලවේගයේ ඡන්ද 1931යි එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයේ ඡන්ද 1500යි.
பொருளை தேர்தல் தொகுதிக்கான தேர்தல் முடிவு ஐக்கிய மக்கள் சக்தி பெற்ற வாக்குகள் 20450, ஸ்ரீலங்கா பொதுஜன பெரமுன பெற்ற வாக்குகள் 17680, தேசிய மக்கள் சக்தி பெற்ற வாக்குகள் 1931, ஐக்கிய தேசிய கட்சி பெற்ற வாக்குகள் 1500.
බටහිර කොළඹ ඡන්ද බල කොට්ටාසිය සමගි ජන බලවේගය ලබාගත් ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 16521යි ශ්‍රී ලංකා පොදු ජන පෙරමුණ ලබාගත් ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 6294යි එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂය ලබාගත් ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 1143යි ජාතික ජන බලවේගය ලබාගත් ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 1074යි.
கொழும்பு மேற்கு தேர்தல் தொகுதிக்கான தேர்தல் முடிவு ஐக்கிய மக்கள் சக்தி பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 16521, ஸ்ரீலங்கா பொதுஜன பெரமுன பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 6294, ஐக்கிய தேசிய கட்சி பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 1143, தேசிய மக்கள் சக்தி 1074 வாக்குகளை பெற்றிருக்கின்றது.
දෙහිවල ඡන්දබල ප්‍රදේශයේ ප්‍රතිඵලය සමගි ජන බලවේගයේ ඡන්ද 18611යි ශ්‍රී ලංකා පොදු ජන පෙරමුණ ඡන්ද 18244යි ජාතික ජන බලවේගයේ ඡන්ද 2094යි එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂය ඡන්ද 1706යි.
தெஹிவலை தேர்தல் தொகுதிக்கான தேர்தல் முடிவு ஐக்கிய மக்கள் சக்தி பெற்ற வாக்குகள் 18611, ஸ்ரீலங்கா பொதுஜன பெரமுன பெற்ற வாக்குகள் 18244, தேசிய மக்கள் சக்தி பெற்ற வாக்குகள் 2094, ஐக்கிய தேசிய கட்சி பெற்ற வாக்குகள் 1706.
කැස්බෑව ඡන්ද බල ප්‍රදේශයේ ශ්‍රී ලංකා පොදු ජන පෙරමුණ ලබාගත් ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 89240යි සමගි ජන බලවේගය ලබාගත් ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 23687යි ජාතික ජන බලවේගය ලබාගත් ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 9160යි එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂය ලබාගත් ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 2098යි.
கெஸ்பேவ தேர்தல் தொகுதிக்கான தேர்தல் முடிவு ஸ்ரீலங்கா பொதுஜன பெரமுன பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 89240, ஐக்கிய மக்கள் சக்தி பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 23687, தேசிய மக்கள் சக்தி பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 9160, ஐக்கிய தேசிய கட்சி பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 2098.
වවුනියාව ඡන්දබල ප්‍රදේශයේ ඡන්ද ප්‍රතිඵලය ඉලංකේ තමිල් අර්ස කච්චි පක්ෂය 22849යි ශ්‍රී ලංකා පොදු ජන පෙරමුණ ඡන්ද 18696යි සමගි ජන බලවේගයේ ඡන්ද 11170යි දෙමළ සමාජ ප්‍රාන්තවාදී පක්ෂය 6758යි.
வவுனியா தேர்தல் தொகுதிக்கான தேர்தல் முடிவு கிடைத்திருக்கிறது. இலங்கை தமிழரசு கட்சி பெற்ற வாக்குகள் 22849, ஸ்ரீலங்கா பொதுஜன பெரமுன பெற்ற வாக்குகள் 18696, ஐக்கிய மக்கள் சக்தி பெற்ற வாக்குகள் 11170, தமிழர்களின் சமூக ஜனநாயக கட்சி பெற்ற வாக்குகள் 6758.
Vavuniya polling division result, Lanka Tamil Sukachi has secured 22,849 votes, Sri Lanka Podu Jana Perumuna 18,696 votes, Samagi Jana Balawege has secured 11,170 votes, and Social Democratic Party of Tamils has secured 6,758 votes.
Obi Handi Sam Purave විසින්ම වාර්තා කරුණු.
රටේ ලෝකයේ සිද්ධ වුණ බොහෝ දේවල් පිළිබඳ තොරතුරු ඔබට කියන්නට අපි සූදානම් වෙන්නේ. මෙහෙම කියොත් අපි කොට උඩ අදින් පස්සේ බස් දුවන්නේ 50%යි.
රිෂාඩ් බදියුද්දීන් ఖైదాவது దేశපේ తడుక్కు ముడియాడు.
Criminal assets accounts under probe.
అంగుడు లోకా murdered in Bangalore.
අපි බලමු අද දවසේ කාටුන් කිහිපයක් කෙරෙහි අවධානය යොමු කරලා
සමුදා සිට සෙනසුරාදා දක්වා උදෑසන 6:07
Welcome back. Before we went into the election results, we were in conversation with these three gentlemen and the lady here about the results that are coming out to get a simple understanding as to what it all means. But when we were in the break, we saw the results of Central Colombo and North Colombo. Shamir, I want to start with you. Never have I ever seen the United National Party logo with such a little amount of votes in Colombo.
Forget about the fact having a small number of votes in Colombo, Chaturanga. Think about the fact that they are in the 4th place and the NPP has done far more better than the UNP. It very clearly shows that the UNP is holding on to dear life, and even when you look at the numbers, it's quite evident they won't even be able to get that 5.4% of the votes cast, and that means that they won't even get the bonus seat from the Colombo district. That means Ranil Wickremesinghe, Ravi Karunayaka, Daya Gamage, individuals of that caliber will not be in parliament this time around, unfortunately. Ranil Wickremesinghe has always resorted to ways and means of getting the nationalist parliamentary seat, so he may come in as the leader of the party, but what does it really show? It shows that the people have rejected the UNP leadership, the people have rejected the UNP, and it very well shows that the oldest political party in Sri Lanka is in disarray, and they don't have any way of getting back into track unless otherwise they have a new leadership, a new way of looking at things, and a new way of having a new leadership in that party's helm at the end of the day.
Azra, I agree with Shamir Chaturanga, because what we have to remember is that the Samagga Jana Balawege derived from the United National Party. So the Samagga Jana Balawege is doing better than the United National Party when it comes to the Colombo Central. So it means that the people are very much with the UNP, just not with the leadership. So it is clear that they are very much opposing the leadership of the party, and that is why the party is in such bad shape.
Azza, I want to shift your attention to Gampaha as well. We saw Nigambo, an electorate that was won by Sajith Premadasa at the presidential election, again this time around having trouble. Kasbawa, again an electorate that was marginally won by the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna presidential candidate, current president. Again, the numbers are very high. The gap between the votes are very high in these sort of UNP, SJB sort of areas, these districts. Again, if you come to Colombo, the North Colombo seat, Ravi Karunayaka from the United National Party is contesting, and then John Ram from the Samagga Jana Balawege and a few others. These are UNP areas, but as you say, if they are voting against the leadership, they have, how did the UNP go below the Jatika Jana Balawege and become the 4th place in the list?
Chaturanga, the Samagga Jana Balawege, the main reason why they left the party and created their own party is because they were against the leadership of Chaturanga. So people are, I think, very indecisive as to where to shift their attention to, because it seems like what I would like to think is that nobody seems to be doing anything for them, and they keep disappointing the people, and there's actually nowhere the people can go. Shamir being so involved with the current situation of the country, being an indecisive voter itself says that, just imagine, think about the people who don't have access to this information, who don't have an idea about what is happening in the country. How do you think is their situation is in that case? So I think people are very reluctant, very scared to make a decision, because they know that at the end of the day it is the same old system that is in circle, just with different forms. There is no new blood here, there is no one coming forward from the young generation, so it is the same thing happening over and over again, Chaturanga.
Chaturanga, just to add to that, I think that at this election, at this general election, there are several myths that have been busted. First and foremost, this myth of the UNP block vote has been completely busted, or that block vote has transitioned to the Samagga Jana Balawege, with potentially, as Faraz and Shamir articulated before, several UNP voters probably just staying at home. The second is this myth that we all know that President Rajapaksa and the SLPP were keen to have the general election as soon as possible. The earliest they could dissolve parliament, they dissolved it. election was originally scheduled. And there was this view amongst certain opposition political pundits that the delay of the election would be disadvantageous to the SLPP. Maybe the low voter turnout has contributed to it somewhat, but maybe. But at the same time, that myth of this being disadvantageous, of the delayed election being disadvantageous to the government, has also been busted. Because when you look at, as you mentioned, the margins here are very important. Where the SLPP is winning, they're winning very comfortably. There are a few seats, like we saw in Colombo, a few polling divisions where the SJB is winning very comfortably. But in some areas, like, Dehiwala is always going to be a touch-and-go polling division.
That has been the
both were neck and neck, unlike in 2015 where it was where it was clearly with the UNP. But both have been neck and neck ever since then. But if you look at like a few other, the margins that the SJB has won by are not big margins. And like as you may in Nigambo, where Sajid Premadas actually won at the presidential election, they've managed to reduce their vote base. Even if you collect the votes that have been garnered by the Jatika Jana Balawega and the UNP, you're still not close to what the SLPP has grown by in Nigambo.
For us, who will go to the Sirikota now?
Well, if today is the end of Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe's parliamentary career, then today is a very important day. Because for 26 years, the people of the United National Party have unfortunately stood by and seen this man lead them from greatness to sadness. And today is that day. Even if he somehow, as Mr. Rasuddin said, he wangles his way into a national seat, the fact is that the people have spoken. And unfortunately, again, it was the people who had to do this. Because you remember that for 26 years, the working committee of the United National Party were silent. They let their leader do this, that and the other, in the face of growing evidence, time after time, that he was a failed leader with a champagne lifestyle.
But Faraz, you're talking about a leader who has touched, if not passed, the 400,000 preferential voter mark in previous elections.
Yes, exactly. Exactly,
and
because the people, Chaturanga, gave him every single opportunity to redeem himself. Back in February or towards the beginning of March 2015, had he acted as a leader would have done, decisively and incisively, then today perhaps he may have got that 400,000 or 500,000 votes you're talking about. Unfortunately, he didn't do that.
Just to add one more thing, we've been talking about the SJB, and just like very quickly just mention this. We also need to look at how the votes are transpiring, how voters are turning out in the north and east as well. There's a big question about, with the formation of Mr. Vigneswaran's Tamil Makkal Thesiya Kootani, the TMTK, and then with the Ahila Ilangai Tamil Congress, the AITC, what kind of impact they would have on the TNA or ITAX, the Ilangai Tamil Arasu Katchi's votes. And I think the results that we're seeing thus far, this may change because there's still a few more polling divisions to be returned. But I think that when you look at it, it does look like the TNA, which had 16 seats in the previous parliament, could be losing 3 or more of those seats.
Shamir, with a very limited amount of time, the future of the SLPP, what does it look like? Where do they go?
So I was waiting until you asked me this question, Chaturanga. Being a journalist, I knew your final question to me is going to be about the SLPP's future. Look at the past 3 years. Look at the past 3 years when the SLPP was formed. They wanted victory at a local government election, people gave them that victory. They won victory at the presidential election, people gave that victory. This is the third election that they're entering, and it's very evident that people want the SLPP to lead the country. And what the SLPP should not forget is that people ultimately have the choice. Come 2025 elections, they may vote them out again if they do not stick to their word. If they think the Troika, that is the Mahinda Rajapaksa, Gotabaya Rajapaksa, Basil Rajapaksa combination, along with Nama Rajapaksa, Sachin Rajapaksa, Tamal Rajapaksa, and then Janaka Ranawaka coming into play, Nipuna Ranawaka coming into play, who's also a family member, if they are going to stick to their guns and think family is going to come first, and we will change the constitution because we want Basil Rajapaksa to enter parliament. We want to change the constitution because we want Mahinda Rajapaksa to contest the parliament presidential election again. If that is going to be their ultimate goal, This is the same fate what we saw in 2015. I'm pretty sure is going to repeat once again. People are not. Just look at the voter turnout in Colombo, North Central and Central. We just witnessed Chaturanga. SLPP was nowhere. SLPP was not even able to pick up pieces, pick up the remnants of the voter turnout. Why? Because Ranasinghe Premadasa at one point started giving these people what they wanted, houses. So they have to have a progressive policy framework. If they do not have a progressive policy framework, what is going to ultimately see is SLPP will also go down the drain, just like the UNP. And unfortunately, I'm not in favor of any political party gaining a two-thirds majority in parliament. Why? Because I strongly believe that there has to be a parliamentary democracy in the country, and the opposition has to be strong in parliament. Only then can they voice their opinion. But then again, when people like Sunil Handuniti are out, I'm trying to figure out what the people in Mathura really want. Do they want?
In fairness, they had voted. 30,000 had voted.
30,000
it wasn't
but
enough.
again, not enough for Sunil Handuniti to come into play. So you have to start thinking. Now there is talk about, I'll tell you a classic example, Chaturanga. Karuna Amman was speaking about killing thousands of soldiers. And then you had Sarath Veerasekar, who was contesting from the Ampara district, coming to Colombo and saying that he was instrumental in killing LTT cadres. Look at the nationalistic rhetoric. And I hear from the grapevine that Sarath Veerasekar is in as far as the preferential votes are concerned in the Colombo district. Look at the nationalistic rhetoric that has taken place in the country over the last few months, the last few years, and this is what is taking center stage. And as individuals who are young, I think Nadeem, Azra, I can't take Faraz into the equation, unfortunately, because of his age. But again, we want a progressive country. We want to see a country where we can invest money. We want to see a country that brings in economic growth to the country. We don't want anything else. We just want the country to do well, and that should be the ethos of everyone in Sri Lanka as well.
I'll give a minute to each of you all. I want to
before I start my long journey, I'd like to leave this country in good shape, just the way you describe it, for all four of you and for everybody else there.
Thank you very much, Faraz.
Azra, I'll go to Azra and come back to you. Azra, we are looking at a situation where there is a possibility the SLPP may get a majority, but the Gotabaya Rajapaksa factor, the presidency, and the Mahinda Rajapaksa factor as the Prime Minister, with all of these people coming into Parliament, do you think they have that future that Shamir is trying to explain to us? Do you think they can do what they have promised?
Chaturanga, it's very unfortunate that the only word that comes to my head when it comes to the political system.
මඩකලපුව දිස්ත්‍රික්කයේ තැපැල් ඡන්ද ප්‍රතිඵලයයි මේ ඉලංකේ තමිල් අරසු පක්ෂය ලබාගත් ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 5051යි තමිල් මක්කල් විදුතලේ පොලිකල් පක්ෂය ලබාගත් ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 2522යි ශ්‍රී ලංකා මුස්ලිම් කොංග්‍රසය ලබාගත් ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 1379යි ශ්‍රී ලංකා පොදු ජන පෙරමුණ ලබාගත් ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 1148යි
மட்டக்களப்பு மாவட்டம் தபால் மூல தேர்தல் முடிவு இலங்கை தமிழரசு கட்சி பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 5051, தமிழ் மக்கள் விடுதலை புலிகள் கட்சி பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 2522, ஸ்ரீலங்கா முஸ்லிம் காங்கிரஸ் பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 1379, ஸ்ரீலங்கா பொதுஜன பெரமுன பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 1148.
මාතලේ දිස්ත්‍රික්කයේ සමස්ත ඡන්ද ප්‍රතිඵලය වෙතයි අවධානය. ශ්‍රී ලංකා පොදු ජන පෙරමුණ ලබාගෙන ඇති ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 33927ක්. සමගි ජන බලවේගය ලබාගෙන තිබෙන ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 18272ක්. ජාතික ජන බලවේගයට හිමි වී තිබෙන්නේ ඡන්ද 1757ක්. අපේ ජනතා බලය පක්ෂය ඡන්ද 1327ක් ලබාගෙන තිබෙනවා.
மாத்தளை தேர்தல் தொகுதிக்கான தேர்தல் முடிவு ஸ்ரீலங்கா பொதுஜன பெரமுன பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 33927, ஐக்கிய மக்கள் சக்தி பெற்ற வாக்குகள் 18272, தேசிய மக்கள் சக்தி பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 1757, எங்கள் சக்தி மக்கள் கட்சி பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 1327.
පදිරිප්පු ඡන්ද බල කොට්ටාසේ ඡන්ද ප්‍රතිඵලය මේ ඉලංකේ තමිල් අරසු පක්ෂය ලබාගත් ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 26498යි තමිල් මක්කල් විදුතලේ පුලිකල් පක්ෂය ලබාගත් ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 16308යි ශ්‍රී ලංකා පොදු ජන පෙරමුණ ලබාගත් ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 7671යි.
மட்டக்களப்பு மாவட்டம் பட்டிருப்பு தேர்தல் தொகுதிக்கான தேர்தல் முடிவு இலங்கை தமிழரசு கட்சி பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 26498, தமிழ் மக்கள் விடுதலை புலிகள் கட்சி பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 16308, ஸ்ரீலங்கா பொதுஜன பெரமுன பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 7671, தமிழ் மக்கள் தேசிய கூட்டணி பெற்றுக்கொண்ட வாக்குகள் 3525.
The election result for the Padiripu polling division, 26,498 votes for the Lanka Tamil Arasu Katchu, 16,308 votes for the Tamil Makkal Vidudalai Puligal, 7,671 votes for the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, and 3,525 votes for the Tamil Makkal Deshiya Kuttani.
Thank you for that result from the main desk. Before we went into the break, we were talking to Azra. Can the government do what it promised with the Gotabe factor and the Mahinda Rajapaksa factor?
Yes, Chaturanga, like I was trying to tell you before, it's very unfortunate that the only word that comes to my mind when it comes to this political system is disappointment. Because end of the day, Chaturanga, this is what I've been trying to tell. End of the day, what matters is what the people of this country want. See, it is very simple. If you look at the system in the country, Chaturanga, it is the same old people over and over again coming into power. So I am also not going towards any political party. I can tell you for sure, I am the youngest out of when compared to you gentlemen, and yes. So I can tell you for sure, Chaturanga, that we are the future of this country. It is we who have to take the lead and now take this country forward. The economy of the country, Chaturanga, the first quarter of this year, the Sri Lanka's economic growth for the first quarter was minus 1.5%. This was even before the COVID-19 pandemic entered Sri Lanka. So even if we go and see what the future holds, our economy is going really down, Chaturanga. So there has to be someone who can take a very strong decision and be like, no, this is what the country wants and this is what the country is going to get. Whoever it may be, it could be the SJB, the SLPP or the UMP, whoever that comes into power has to make sure that we have to move forward and that the people of this country, the young generation, that they are being given the priority. So that is when we all can go forward.
Thank you, Azra. Thank you, gentlemen. Unfortunately, I don't have time to give you all a concluding time frame to conclude your remarks, unfortunately. But thank you, nevertheless, for being here for throughout this hour and talking to us about the election result and what it really means. Shami, thank you. Faraz, Nadeem and Azra, thank you very much. We have been throughout the day keeping you updated and throughout the night as well. Our team is on the other side ready to bring you the election results when they come. It's back to the main control room. Thank you very much.